Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the New and Old Malden Neighbourhood Committee, whether here in person or watching on the webcast. My name is Councillor Leslie Heap and I'm chairing the meeting this evening. In the event of an emergency and the sounding of an alarm, the emergency evacuation procedure is to leave by the main staircase located behind me and to congregate at the front of the building near the car park. Anyone requiring assistance should remain in their seats and an officer will assist you from the building. As a reminder to members of the public, the exit out of the building this evening is via the staircase located through the double doors that you'll see behind me. This meeting is being filmed for live broadcast on the Council's YouTube channel, and an archive version will be available to view on the Council's website after the meeting finishes. The broadcast will be suspended during any adjournments in proceedings and if the committee resolves to consider information as exempt business. Please can everyone present in the meeting ensure their mobile phones are switched off or in the silent mode for the duration of this meeting. Item 1 is public questions. Do we have any questions from members of the public this evening? Yeah, would you like to come forward and ask your question? Thanks. We have 30 minutes for that. Just take a seat.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh, sorry. We thought you'd remembered it. Sorry. Yeah, so if you just introduce yourself and...
Yeah, hi there. My name is Neil Newman-Bale. I'm the freeholder of 46 to 48 Wellington Crescent in New Malden. So my question is, why has Wellington Crescent been lumped in with the California Road proposal, which is residential, when Wellington Crescent is purely commercial? There is no residential property at all on Wellington Crescent or Aspley Road either. They're just purely commercial. Not only that, it's a dead end, so it's almost like a mini trading estate, so it's self-contained. And yeah, so that's the question. I don't know who I'm addressing it to. But
Thank you very much. To the committee, and then I'll try and get you an answer.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Eunice, if you could just follow up on that, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. At the part where we consulted the resident, Wellington Crescent was a part of it. And as a result, we consulted the resident again as a part of the, to compare the previous consultation to the existing consultation. However, the CPZ scheme or the PPA scheme, it is a scheme will address and to remove all-day commuters. And in order to improve and make the road safer for our resident, yes, maybe this road doesn't have all resident yet, but maybe in the future this will be used by our residents. Therefore, at the moment, it's used only by commuters or people who's using these premises. So the scheme is only consultation. So therefore, members can make the decision based on the result of the consultation. So it's not written in stone. It is something we consult. Then we now seek the committee resolution. Then after that, there will be traffic management order where people can object, and you can object again if the committee approve the scheme, and they can come back here. So that's a process. I hope that answered that question, Chair.
Thank you. Did you have a follow-up question? Or?
Actually, I did.
It is going to be discussed as part of this meeting and everything, and members of the public.
The only other point I wanted to make is that I did get the letter, but I got it late. It was a very small window. And I've spoken to a variety of other businesses in that road, and they either didn't get a letter, so they say, or well, they were very confused because it said California Road, and we're all quite busy business people, and it was deemed nothing to do with Wellington Crescent because the residential area at California Road is across Kingston Road. It is not nowhere near Wellington Crescent, and we used to get an awful lot of for the flats in Lee Close, I think it is, continuously. And so if it doesn't necessarily, we should have read it maybe better. However, we didn't realise, and that's another thing. It's very misleading in its sort of description of the California Road residential proposal. So that's just my point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you'd like to return, take your seat. Thank you very much. No more questions? Right, moving on to petitions. We have received notification of 2 petitions being submitted this evening. The first is from Kirsty Montgomery, who submitted the petition but does not wish to speak. And the petition is about a CPZ for Wessex Close and now will be taken away by officers and dealt with in accordance with the council's petition scheme. We have that petition. Thank you. The second one is from Angeline Turner. Angeline, I believe, is here. Would you like to take a seat, please? And present your petition. You have about 2 minutes, and at 30 seconds, we'll just warn you that your time is nearly up, but you may or may not need that time. So, thank you very much.
First, to say thank you very much to Councillor Sillett, who has engaged on this issue before. I'm presenting a petition which strongly supports the resurfacing of Acacia Grove. We just didn't want it to fall off the list or the agenda, so in sort of an hour and a half, I managed to collect 34 signatures off of residents on our road. Basically, almost everyone who was home that I've managed to find was interested in this. I'd add that a lot of people were surprised that the pavement wasn't included and would be highly supportive of our pavement being redone as well. So if that can be considered at some point, either tonight or in the future, I think there would be a lot of support on the road for that because a lot of people are concerned about that. But everybody's delighted that we're hopefully getting the road resurfaced. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to present your petition. Yeah, your petition will be taken away and dealt with by officers in accordance with the council's petition scheme. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 3, apologies for absence and the attendance of substitute members. Alice, do we have any apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. We have received apologies from Councillor Coogan.
Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss something out? No.
Councillor Henderson is also apologised.
Yeah, sorry. Councillor Henderson's running a bit late, the Vice Chair. She is coming on from another meeting this evening and she'll be here shortly. Declarations of interest. Members are asked to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or any other registrable, non-registrable interests relevant to items on the agenda. Do members have any declarations of interest? Please indicate now. Councillor Park.
So I'm proposed to be a trust for Henry Smith charity. So that agenda maybe, I don't know whether I need to stay here or... Okay.
Thank you very much. I mean, we are aware of that because it's an item on the agenda. Thank you. Item 5, do members agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 28th of November 2024 as a true and correct record? Any comments? Thank you. I'll sign those later. I've just realised that I didn't have introduction of councillors, which obviously I've been following my list and perhaps it wasn't on. It doesn't matter. So just before we go on to the first item, I'm going to ask members just to quickly introduce themselves, going around the room. So I'll start with Councillor Thorpe over on the far side. Thank you.
Councillor Richard Thorpe, representing Moxford Park and Old Malden East.
Andrew Sillett, Coombe Vale.
Hello, Andrew Bolton, also Coombe Vale.
Good evening, Councillor Yvonne Tracy for Green Lane and St James.
Good evening, Councillor James Giles, Green Lane and St James Ward.
Good evening, Mark Tarrant from New Malden Village Ward.
Good evening, Councillor Robert Kim from New Malden BG.
Good evening, Councillor Massimi for Old Malden.
Good evening, Councillor Elizabeth Park for Old Malden.
Thank you. And also we have supporting staff here. On my right, I have Alice Aubrey from Democratic Services. And on my left, I have Ralph Hyde, who is our neighbourhood manager, followed by George Vickers from Highways Department and also Eunice Hamadi, our senior engineer, also from Highways Department. So just to introduce everybody so everybody knows who everybody is. Thank you. So moving on to item 6, which is Planned Highway Maintenance and Street Lighting Capital Programme for 25-26. So I'm going to hand over to George to give a summary of the report before we go further. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report is to detail the planned maintenance works for carriageway and street lighting carried out in 24-25 financial year, and to consult the neighbourhood committees on the planned maintenance programme for 25-26. As part of this, you're invited to comment on Annex 2 and Annex 4 for officers to consider before putting the report together for the Place Committee for the final decision. I will say at the start, just for clarification, as this came up in some of the other wards, planned maintenance is full width resurfacing and full length against a section. It doesn't cover potholes, which is a separate point which would be picked up by our reactive maintenance team. On a separate point as well, I'm Principal Officer for planned maintenance in the Borough. I don't actually cover street lighting, but I spoke with one of my colleagues, Naz Islam, who's provided the street lighting input to this report. Broadly, with the columns that are being replaced in it, it's literally where they've gone out and tested, and anything that is failing or indicating as failing has been put forward for replacement of that. And the lantern replacements on the report is basically where we're trying to convert everything in the borough to LED, basically, as there's a cost saving to it. I'm now more than happy to go on to the planned maintenance side of it. As part of the work this year, we've looked at the overall length of road in the borough, because we've had one or two things come up where it's just actually caused me to question what is the length in each neighbourhood committee area. And we've got 89.9 kilometres of road in New and Old Malden, basically, out of 384 in the borough as a whole, which breaks down about 23%. And as part of that this year, we're putting forward 6 roads to be resurfaced within this committee area. And I'm happy to go through them as part of this list. Looking at the table, I'll read off the annex as we go forward. We've got Acacia Grove, that is the first road up. That's something that Councillor Bolton's flagged in the past, and this year we felt the level of deterioration that we've seen in it is high enough that it had to be included. As part of the survey works that we do, we obviously do visual officer inspection, and we use a tool called Visolar AI, which basically captures video as my officers go around the borough surveying, and then assigns a score on it based on the level of deterioration that's seen in the road. Everything that's put forward in New and Old Malden this year scored in the top 7% worst overall in the borough. Everything on this list of the top 19 scored in the top 11%, basically. So we've literally prioritised based on need this year. That is why south of the borough has only got 2 roads. It's not because we've not tried to split things equally. For reasons we're not completely sure of, the roads in south of the borough, on average, were of a better quality than the other 3 committee areas. So that's why the funding this year is slightly lopsided in comparison to previous years. Overall, New and Old Malden has got the most of all of the 4 committee areas, between the spending on carriageway plus the fact it's got a footway as well. As it's actually detailed in the report, bear with me. Sorry, under the funding point, which is under point B, we've actually put more into carriageways this year because we felt there's a greater need for carriageway, and that's a subject I'd like to discuss with chairs throughout this year, possibly looking at how we fund things going forward to a certain extent, because we're actually concerned on the whole about the level of deterioration we're seeing in carriageways. Probably the best example is actually Acacia Grove and Arundel Road, which were raised last year and we didn't have concerns for. This year, Acacia Grove came in the top 6% on survey, and Arundel Road came in the top 5% on survey. It's the same as the situation when Councillor Giles flagged Franks Avenue a couple of years ago. Previous year, no concern. We've surveyed it the following year, following Councillor Giles's members' inquiry at the time, and the deterioration between year and year has been quite significant. And over the medium term, that's something that worries us, basically. So looking at the roads on the list that we put forward, basically you've got Acacia Grove as the first road, which is going to be the full length, and everything is subject to the Place Committee next month, basically where this list will either get approved or rejected. So this is what we're proposing to put forward. So you've got the full length of Acacia Grove being put forward, which scored in the top 6% of all 925 roads that were surveyed this year. You've then got Arundel Road is the next one on the list in Annex 2. That scored very slightly worse and was placed in the top 5%. Next up, you've got Green Lane in New Malden, which scored in the top 4%. So it's a consistent theme, as I've said. We've focused purely on the level of need, basically, from what we've seen with the levels of carriageway condition, and that has been the focus this year. Windsor Avenue is only going to be a section between 23 Windsor to the junction with Green Lane. This is a bus and cycle route, and it is to complement some of the other works that have been done in recent years. And we've noticed more and more, because of the level of vehicle movements through there, that there's quite a sharp level of deterioration. That section, as we looked at the section score in this case, as the road overall is quite good, the section we're doing is poor, scored in the top 7%. As Vaisala will give you an average score for each road, and then because of the way it effectively slices the road up into chunks, effectively, so it allows you to then work what the worst concurrent 100 metres is, basically. And that section of Windsor Avenue, which is what we're targeting, scored in the top 7%, basically. And sorry, I realise I've just gone out of sync on Annex 2. Bear with me. Sorry, my fault. Green Lane, New Malden. No, sorry, I've mentioned that. Sorry, my fault. I've just lost my spot in my own list. Sheep House, thank you. Just round the corner. Basically, that's only me focusing on the roundabout section only. The Sheep House Way is just not good overall as a road, but the roundabout has been given a higher priority here, which scored really badly. The road as a whole scored badly as well and placed in the top 4%, so that's probably a wider aim. But the problem you've got with Sheep House is because it's of what it is, that's going to be night works. So unfortunately, and this is the problem that you see in Kingston and North Kingston, where a lot of the roads in the town centre need night works. Obviously, there's an increased charge for doing work at night, as frankly nobody wants to do it at night. So that's another factor that we factor in when we put things forward. But in this case, Sheep House Way roundabout needs to be done. Was one of the worst surveyed roads in the borough this year, basically. St James Close was flagged by Councillor Duran, and when we've looked at it, that scored really badly. Basically scored in the top 1%, like one of the worst roads we surveyed this year. And I think that covers off all of the roads. And for the footway that we've put forward, basically we flagged Selwyn Road. As with footways, we are converting anything with concrete ASP paving, as it's in a similar way to what we're doing with flipping to LEDs. Concrete ASP paving has a higher degree or higher maintenance cost to replace the paving slabs or maintain them when the defect's found. So what we're slowly going through the borough systematically, removing the concrete ASP paving and basically replacing it with a tarmac footway construction, which is easy to maintain and cheaper to maintain. And Selwyn Road got flagged by Mark Murphy's reactive maintenance team as being a source of defects. So we've identified that to be fully reconstructed. Those are the roads that we put forward, and I'm happy to take any questions that you would like, or suggestions, and in whatever order works best. If someone wants, sorry, I don't know if it's me to point which order, or
no, you don't say nothing.
Sorry, thank you very much. That's very informative. Thank you very much, George. Yep. Right, so yes. So first of all, any comments from the public? No, and from members now. I did see Councillor Massimi's hand up first, and then I'll go in the order down there. Okay, that's all right. Thank you very much. Councillor Massimi.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the report, and this is my favourite time of the year. I just wish to bring suggestions and comment. On the carriageway, I would very much like officer and the team to maybe pay another visit to Old Ridge Rise, which is in a very, very poor state in terms of maintenance, and section of Lawrence Avenue. But more importantly, I'm really, really concerned about two major roads, one which was highlighted rightly as one of the worst. I will use a term which is probably even worse than that. And I would strongly suggest that when we do Cheap House Way roundabout, we extend up to the Clinton block, so basically on the side of each of the estate, which the road is actually a highway road, to my knowledge, and not an estate road, which is in a terrible condition. And that's also the road that accesses the emergency vehicle for the Hogs Mill. But more importantly, even though it might be a night work, unless we use Borough and alternative route while we do a TPO on this, we really, really need to seriously consider the conditions of the road and road marking, and also the parking issues opposite the primary school, which is in a shocking conditions and extremely dangerous for cyclists, pedestrian, riders, and even road users, generally speaking. So if we could at least extend up to half of Cheap House Way while doing the roundabout, even if that means potentially having a slight diversion or not having a K1 via this route for an evening, I would very welcome that. It's really, really critically in a poor condition. Lastly, but really importantly, another really, really shocking road, which to my surprise was meant to be completely redone but stopped within a week of starting the work, is Church Road. I really implore the officers to look at the traffic, the quality of the road, or the condition of the road, which is far from quality, and the amount of pothole we have from Boundary Lodge when we come from Epsom and Newhall, who have done the road spotless on their side. When we cross within Kingston, that road is extremely dangerous, poorly lighted, overgrown, which have been reported 20 times, and also in urgent need of repair and resurfacing. This road is super, super dangerous. We have ongoing accident and near miss. Please, 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 we need to do it. Lastly, and I stop, the end of Church Road was also just shy of number 20 last year, from the roundabout up to Brockenhurst Avenue. I think we were number 20 on a list of 19. We keep doing patchwork there, and it's just a nightmare just passing the roundabout. Could we also consider this one? Church Road and Cheap House are in shocking condition. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Councillor Massimi. Councillor Sillett.
Good evening. Thank you very much for that report. I'd first of all just like to pass on to you the question that Mrs. Turner raised: is when is the pavement in Acacia being? It's not on the priority list there, and I just wonder if there's any indication as to when that might be looked at.
I'll be honest, I have no indication of that.
I'll perhaps follow up another time with you and get back to.
Happy if you want to raise that as a member inquiry.
I have a suggestion related to pavements. Utility companies come along, they dig it up, they throw in some sort of conglomerate-looking stuff. I'm not an engineer, I don't know what it is. And then it starts to crack around the edges. And then we've got trip hazards. And when I've gone down roads with officers, they say, oh, that's utilities, or that's a drop driveway. I just wonder if there was any way that we could do our residents a favour by being a bit more vigilant about the work that's carried out, going along and saying, do you know what? I know you fixed it, but it's not good enough. That's going to be a trip hazard in 2 years' time. Do it again. Because, you know, when you go down there, it's nearly always drop pavements or it's utility companies that cause potential trip hazards. And it would be great to be able to nip those in the bud, really, rather than get a lot of complaints. Go along with an officer and say, well, that's down to the utilities, not us. If we could spot them when they've been just completed and the material we know is not going to last as long as it could do, that'd be a great time to get them back to do it again. I'd also just like to thank our residents in Arundel and Acacia, because they've been on our cases for 2 years, and they were spot on in that they were the two worst roads in the area. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Sillett. Councillor Bolton.
Thanks very much, Chair. And it was really just to say thank you to George and the team for bringing forward Arundel and Acacia, because as he indicated when he was giving his report, it is something that Combe Vale councillors have been asking about for a while. And I completely understand how a couple of years ago, or even last year, it didn't quite make the grade, shall we say, if that's the right way of putting it, but this year it does. So on the one hand, I'm delighted that it's going to be, both of them actually, Arundel and Acacia, delighted that they're both going to be dealt with. In another way, it's slightly sad that they have deteriorated so far. But thank you very much, George, because I know you and the team do a fantastic job with stretched resources, and it's very much appreciated. Thank you. I'd also like to thank you for the very clear, the clarity of your report, which is crystal clear and very easy to follow. And just finally, thank you to Mrs. Turner for coming along as well. And I know that's an issue you've been following. And I hope, subject to the decision at the Place Committee, which is coming up quite soon, that I hope you'll be pleased with the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belton. Councillor Giles?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you also to George for the clarity of his presentation. Echo Councillor Bolton's comments there. Obviously, I'm incredibly pleased to see Green Lane and Windsor Avenue included in the list of carriageways. I raised Green Lane last year with officers following a number of complaints. I'm really pleased to see action there, and ditto for the footway in Selwyn Road, the only footway in the neighbourhood to be done this year. My question, though, if I may, Chair, is actually on Annex 1. It has the completed highway maintenance programme for this year, which includes Thetford Road. Just wondered if George had a date for when Thetford Road is actually planning on being resurfaced, because I'm aware we're coming towards the end of the financial year now.
Sorry, I don't have a date yet, but I'm glad you've asked that, because it's something that I'm quite keen about. It's one of the things we've tried to do this year, and I'm just finding the point in the report. Bear with me. Or it's at the bottom, just under point 13. One of the things we've tried to do this year is we put a web page together just to actually list the programme as we're going through, and just to try and improve the transparency and ability for councillors to be able to cascade information quite easily. Both of them are the two roads that haven't actually been completed. It's just unfortunate where we're still in year. People have asked, what's the plan for 24-25? Both of the two roads that we've got missing for this year, which are Villiers and Thetford, are still to be done, are programmed in for the fourth quarter, and that's actually listed on the web page as programmed in for the fourth quarter. We're just waiting for the actual specific dates. As what we try to do with those is we will list the roads that are next coming up, and as soon as we have a date that's locked in, shall we say, usually within about 2 months of it getting done, we will add that date to it. So that's something I would expect to be updated fairly soon. As the last thing we want to do is say it's going to be done on this date and then have to change it, if that makes sense. So yeah, that is a Q4 issue. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. I'm just very keen to make sure that it doesn't end up slipping off once we reach year end.
Confirm it won't.
Thank you very much, Councillor Giles. Any more questions or comments? Councillor Durrant and then Councillor Kim. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much as well, George, for the report. Very, very clear and good. And obviously, pleased to see St James Close is on that. That was very much asked for. So thank you for that. I've got something here which is slightly outside of our neighbourhood, but it's come to me by a neighbour who had a very nasty fall near the Kingston Hospital on the Goulsworthy Road. Obviously, you've got quite a lot of vulnerable residents in that area, and to hear that people are falling over and damaging themselves as well, that it would be good to have, if you could have a look at that road to make sure that that's okay for everybody from the pavement perspective. And then I declare interest here as well, but Albany Road, the footpath is a bit of a disaster. So please, if you could have a look at that as well. Thank you.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report as well. Yeah, I have one question about the post hole at the entrance of the Malden Centre. It caused a quite big danger for the road user and user for the facility. I often see, regularly about a couple of months' time, it happened again and again. and people try to avoid that pothole. It caused a quite big danger. So I wonder, is there any scheme we can, to avoid that kind of danger from the community? Thanks.
As I understand it, sorry, this is one that got flagged with me yesterday. That, I believe, sits under parking services, I think, basically, where it's a car park, essentially. And just on a separate point, and the previous point from Councillor Durant, if it's an isolated issue, such as on Galsworthy Road, like an uneven footway, basically, that's the kind of thing you can report on the council's website under a defect, basically, as there's a function for doing that, and that then gets passed on to Mark Murphy's team, who covers reactive maintenance. But obviously, we will consider that, and for what it's worth, as it's a separate point in the report, there is the potential for the council getting DFT funding from the Department of Transport, and that section at the bottom of the Kingston Hill outside of Kingston Hospital is one of the ones we are considering as if we get A road funding as part of that. So that area is being looked at. I appreciate it's outside of this committee, but that is one of the things under consideration. Thank you.
Ralph, you have some comments.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Kim, I've raised this issue in Malden Centre with parking already. They informed me that the previous repair was frost damaged and hence why it lifted so quickly. And it's planned to redo when the weather's suitable. So it's a permanent one.
Thank you for your work.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any more questions or any comments? Okay, thank you very much, and also my thanks to George for your very clear report as well. These comments will be taken away by officers and forwarded to the Place Committee in February. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You may leave the room, I think the words are. Thank you, George. Right, moving on to the next item. The much-awaited California Road result of local consultation. It was to consider the results of the local consultation in the California Road area and to agree a way forward. I'm now going to introduce Yunus Hamadi, Senior Engineer, to give us a summary of his report. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair, I have a presentation. I'm trying to put it up.
Okay. Thank you.
It's in display, isn't it?
What did I say?
Display?
Yeah. There we are.
So what do I do now? Slide. Thanks. All right. Thank you, Chair. Okay, I'm presenting to you is, what do we have here is the result of the consultation on the California Road area for the introduction of a parking scheme. A year ago, I brought to this committee a report outlining the result of the consultation on California area. As you can see, this is the previous consultation which I brought to you previously. And at that time, members felt there is not strong support for the scheme, so therefore they decide not to approve the scheme and for the officer to come back after 1 year and do another consultation and bring the result back to this committee. So tonight we have the result of the consultation. We sent 471 letters. We have 140 responses received, which is about 24%. Out of these 140 responses, we have 51% that prefer to see some sort of parking control in the area, such as parking permit parking area or controlled parking zone. So now I have the result here. I thought I can share it with you, which is road by road. Yes, as you can see, some of the road, they have very good response rate, and some of the road, we don't have a very good response rate. So therefore, overall, I pressed the wrong one. Okay, that is the other area as well. So based on the result, what we have in front of us, I'm asking members to approve the scheme for implementation. But that will be subject to the publication of the traffic management order. What that means, all the residents in this area, they will be sent a letter, and we will ask them, we'll tell them there is a traffic management order for that, and they can object legally, which I'm 100% sure we're going to receive objection. So therefore, we'll kind of bring that objection back to this committee, and then we can address the objection received. So my recommendation here, as it's outlined in the report, taking into consideration the result of the consultation in paragraph 2 till 5 of the report and the comment set out in Annex 2 of the report, and subject to the necessary statutory consultation, a permit parking area PPA be implemented in those roads shown in Annex 1, operating between Monday till Saturday, 8:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. I'm happy to take any question, Chair.
Yeah, just before that, thank you very much, Eunice, for your summary of the report. I'd just like to propose the recommendation as set out on page B1 of the report. May I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Thorpe. And comments from the public first. I think, Neil, I've got you, I can't remember your last name. Thank you very much. If you'd like to come forward and make a comment, because you're a member. This is comments from the public. So that would be yourself rather, and then we'll go on to the committee comments and questions. Yeah, thank you very much indeed.
Sorry, I forgot. I did print this out and I forgot it. I was in a bit of a rush to get here. So, if I get it right. Oh, okay. Okay. I'd like to thank you for taking my opinion. And I appreciate this must be quite an issue, the parking, for a lot of residential people. However, Wellington Crescent, as said before, and Aspley Road are purely commercial, essentially a mini trading estate, and both roads are dead ends and self-contained. Also, all the property is industrial, and every business, bar one that I know of, has multiple members of the public who has to visit them on a daily basis. And we do employ an awful lot of people, and they all come in from the surrounding areas. So we need parking for our staff and our visitors. Now, we've always had that parking, and it's the businesses in our area, well, in all areas, in all fairness, it seems to be a cash cow for the councils and the government. And an example of this is that our business rates in 2017 were 62,500. In 2023, they went up to 91,500 rateable. That's a 46% increase. And then to take away the parking that we actually have in the road as well, and also, according to the FSB, Federation of Small Business, 60% of all employment is done by SMEs, which I am one of them, and 52% of the UK GDP is from SMEs. And, we would like to see some support from the councils and the government. And I believe that taking away the business parking and trying to give it to residential people in a non-residential road isn't exactly business friendly. So thank you very much for my statement. Just make sure there's nothing else. There are other things that could be considered. However, without a business consultation, I'd struggle to talk about that now. But thank you very much for taking me.
Yeah, if you'd just like to take a seat and we bear your comments in mind. Moving on now to members. Do you have any questions? Councillor Tracy. This is to Eunice.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to know why Wellington Crescent and Lee Close has been included, because as the gentleman said, it's totally industrial and as far as I know, no houses. So basically, why was that little area there included when also it's quite a way away from where the problem is at California and Willow? Thank you.
Chair?
Thank you, Eunice.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chair, it's very important to bear in mind when we introduce controlled parking zone or a parking scheme, there is a displacement. And if there is a displacement, that means the parking which currently is within Wellington Crescent, or this area you're referring to, councillors, it will be taken by commuters. So that means what we're trying to do is we are trying to protect our residents and our businesses, because the business are allowed to purchase a permit in order to park on the highways. They can. There is a number of permits they can purchase. And there's not a lot of parking available. So what we're doing here is by addressing the displacement and making sure the businesses that are able to purchase a visitor permit as well, which they can give it to their visitors, but at least there is a space available for them if they want to use it. Because if we don't do that, this space will be gone by commuters and there is no space available to anybody anymore. I hope that answered that question, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Sillett.
I fully share this gentleman's concerns and Councillor Tracy's. I've got a dodgy car and I go down to the garages there too frequently, and the parking is incredibly heaped up. You have to sort of ask, wait for, it's very congested. And I fully accept that you want to deal with displacement, because if it's free at the moment and suddenly people start going into Wellington Close, it will impact businesses. I just wonder, rather than heaping more cost onto businesses who are struggling, not just for the reasons that the business rates have gone up, but for other reasons beyond our control, can we do anything to help them with this parking situation, to keep basically free parking but controlled parking? Is there a kind of a happy medium that we could introduce whereby they could protect their parking for their staff and their customers without having to have an increased cost to avoid this displacement?
To found a scheme which will address the businesses, the only one I can think of which is a scheme which is not CPZ, because any CPZ or parking permit area, there is a cost attached to it. The only other option available, if members want, we can introduce 1 hour no return within 2 hours. So that means people can park only 1 hour maximum, and they have to go somewhere else for 2 hours. So if we do that, we can address the issue of commuters who are no longer able to come and park there all day. So if members wish to do that, that's a part of things we can consider as a part of this resolution. But as I said, the people, this 1 hour could be done by anybody who's going to the shop, by anybody in the area. So we cannot guarantee that it's going to be only purely to the businesses in Wellington Crescent.
I think that's a really good idea, but it would be good to consult the businesses to find out whether they that would cover their staff parking. I know a lot of them have forecourts that they could probably park for most of their staff, but it'd be good to consult before we were asked to make a decision on that, because that would be problematic for them.
Thank you. Councillor Bolton.
Thanks very much, Chair. And I'm afraid it's a sort of continuation of the theme, which probably Eunice is going to be dreaming about tonight, having to more or less answer the same question. But I find this deeply problematic, and I was very impressed with what Neil said in outlining the problems that his business would face. So this idea of, I hear what Eunice is saying about the commuters, but without some sort of mitigations for businesses like Neil's, I would actually just prefer Wellington and absolutely to be taken out. So I really do think that it needs something along those lines of 1 hour parking, possibly with no return within 2 hours. But I'd be most interested, actually, Chair, I'm not sure if this is part of the format or what, but most interested to find out what Neil's reaction to that would be. If is it possible to invite him back to the table there to just give his reaction? Would he be okay with what that suggestion is that's been made on the 1 hour parking?
Yeah, Eunice will come back to that, but there will be a formal consultation and TMO, so
well,
they will be able to come back on that.
Sorry, Chair, it would very likely affect my vote this evening, so I'd like to hear what the resident, or in this case the business owner who has raised this very serious concern, thinks about it before I take my vote.
Well, Eunice is going to reply to that.
No, but I would like to know what the resident thinks, if possible.
Can we hear from Eunice first?
Thank you, Chair. I think there is two issues here. The first one is if you think you want to include or exclude Wellington Crescent from these proposals. It is something within your hand as members. Members can decide. But I did explain to you why I felt I want to leave it in order to protect the businesses, not against the businesses, because the displacement. So if the issue of the 1 hour parking, it's something we will be consulting the businesses, all the businesses, before we proceed with that. So I'm not sure by asking one businesses tonight, you're going to be able to make the decision without asking all the businesses in the area. So it's up to you, councillors. But I think you need to separate the two together and to make your decision. If you feel the number of spaces within Wellington Crescent, you want to leave them out of the scheme, it's fine. You can't leave them out. But I have to say something very important. It's not about only Wellington Crescent. It's about all other roads as well in here. Is we have very tight schedule of work, and I have not a lot of resources. So therefore, if I'm going to move after tonight and committee decide to approve some of the road, not all the road, which is absolutely fine, that's your privilege, and that is why you are the councillor, you make the decision. But I cannot come back like last year after 1 year to consult and bring result. I cannot come back because before 3 years, I have other consultation I need to do to the rest of the borough. So you need to bear that in mind. If any displacement do happen and take place, I'm afraid I cannot do any other consultation before 3 years. I hope that answers the question, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Can I just have a quick come back to that? Thank you, Eunice. That's all very clear, almost as clear as George's report. So crystal clear, I would say. But I really would like to hear, and I know what you're saying about just one business person, but I think hearing from one business person better than hearing from no business people. So with your permission, Chair, would it be possible to hear from Neil? I'm very keen to hear what he makes of this idea. Yes. If necessary, we can,
So that's fine, but I will make my comments after that, okay? Neil, do you want to come back and make a comment on that? And then I'll make my comments on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, in all fairness, it would probably be better to be left out. However, we do have exactly what Eunice said, another site of mine in Walton-on-Thames where they have 1 hour no return within 1 hour. Now, that's an area of about 5 parking spaces, and actually it works quite well for people coming in, because what we can do, maybe is take the cars off the road and put them in the car park, so the customers that come in don't actually have to use the car park, they can use the road. So it could work. But again, this is my opinion. So it could work, and it would probably be better to just leave it to everyone in the estate, essentially, because it seems to work quite well. And it's very crowded down there. And, you know, we have lorries coming in and out, and people get on with it. But as I said, the 1 hour no return within 1 hour is a possibility, as long as it's not a 2 hour and no return, which is what's over in Beresford Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have a comment, Councillor Giles?
Are these questions or questions and comments? All right. No, I'll leave that to you. I'll do a question first, if I may, Chair. I noticed in the report on Kingston Road, the number of addresses consulted this time was 55. But when I looked to the last committee reference in March 2023, there are 138 addresses on Kingston Road that were consulted. I just wonder why the discrepancy, and I question maybe whether or not Crown House may be, with 70-odd addresses, were left off this time. It's my guess, but I don't know the answer.
Thank you. Yeah, I also noticed quite a few discrepancies in the numbers here, and the fact that some people had been asked, like local visitors and people like that had been asked this time but weren't asked before. So to me, there was quite a few discrepancies in the numbers and responses. So, yeah, I'd like to know about that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As you know, previously our consultation was for Kingston Road was bigger, and we include Dickridge, part of Dickridge within it. But this time we reduced it. But however, I'm happy to look into that in more details, but sorry, that's the only explanation I do have. So because the area of Kingston Road, we reduced the size of it, so therefore maybe that is the right one now, not the previous one. But I'm happy to look at it in more details.
Thank you. I don't recall genuinely those roads being included last time, but thank you. I mean, if I may make some comments, Chair, before I give way. Ultimately, you know, this has come back a second time. We know that last time this came up, the residents of California Road came out in force and felt incredibly strongly about the situation, and you know, a good number of them do still feel that way. But last time we took a decision here as a committee by a majority vote not to implement a CPZ or PPA on the basis that there wasn't strong enough support. And last time round, the objections totaled some 42%. This time the objections total 44%, and it's a higher turnout as well. So the raw number is almost double. There were 35 objections last time. There were 62 objections to a PPA or CPZ this time. And whilst I have great sympathy, truly, with the situation of a small number of homes in California Road who find parking much more difficult now because of the Kingston East development and indeed through other developments, I can't, in all good conscience, as one of the two ward members, support a scheme that encompasses all of these roads. And I did say this in our pre-meeting with the officers. In Georgia Road, only 5 responses out of 83. There's clearly not demand for an extra levy in that street. Springfield Place, 7 out of 102. And actually, in a lot of these streets, the number of objections has gone up. Last time we consulted in Kingston Road, although we consulted many more homes, last time not one home in Kingston Road did object. This time 14 did. Even in California Road last time, only 5 homes objected. This time 11 did. And so for me, I'm not comfortable levying an additional levy tax on our residents when they don't have an appetite for it. And just finally, if I may, Chair, whilst residence permits, as long as you don't have an electric car, stand at £120, for businesses, the first permit, my understanding, is £400. The second permit is £550. And the third permit and every permit thereafter is £650, which just compounds to me that I can't support levying this on businesses at this time. I appreciate that view will upset a number of residents in California Road, and I appreciate there are issues with dump cars, which we're working with the local police to address. But I would hope that the representation we've heard here from the business owner this evening, and indeed the view of the ward members, may hold some weight with the committee. All I can say is that if it were a scheme in another member's ward and their ward members felt a certain way representing their residents, I would, at this committee, always seek to vote in line with what they had proposed, given it's their ward. Thank you, Chair. I'll hand over back to you. Thank you.
Any more comments? Councillor Massimi.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for your input. I just want to have a very, I hear the resident and I understand the challenge from what we have observed and the review after a year. But I'm very surprised because we talk about the business and I'm all pro-business. I want everyone to realize there's 3 roads that have been surveyed, 33 addresses. We have received 3% of a response of any kind. We've received 1 answer out of 33 roads, from what I understood on those numbers, from businesses. The rest have not engaged, if I am correct, at all. So my question is, and in this type of survey, we need to be really careful. We're not asking, do you want the scheme? We're asking everybody, what do you prefer to choose from all the options that are available, including do nothing? I think it's quite unfair to basically make a choice on the silent people that we assume have not voted because they don't want a change. No, if you don't want something or if you are against something, you have to say it. If you don't vote, you should not have a voice. So I'm sorry to say that, but some of those roads which appears to be, I wouldn't say against, do not care, and I don't want to pinpoint any road, they should say that they are against it, or they should say that they do not want to see a change. But if they do not vote, we should not take this as a sign of they are against. This is really important. And if they do not respond to a survey, we cannot assume that that means that they do not want to see a change. So I think it's really important, as much as I understand perfectly the business, absolutely. But the issue here is we have California Road and others that have actively participated. And if all of the road would have been against it, they could have had the same chance and the same opportunity to also raise concern and object to it. They have not. And I'm just looking at numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sillett. Sorry, Councillor Massimi. Sorry. Okay, I made a mistake. Councillor Tracy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regard to saying about people not voting, I think it's fair to say that a lot of businesses in Wellington Crescent, as the gentleman said, didn't realise, okay, maybe they should have read it a bit carefully, but they didn't realise that California Road would include them because it is a long way away, and they weren't included when the parking restrictions were brought in Beresford Road and Dunbar Road, which is exactly opposite them. So I think a lot of them thought if they weren't included in that one, which is exactly opposite, they can't possibly mean their road when they're talking about California, because they really didn't think it included them. And I'd also like to say, can we remember that in Wellington Crescent there is a very, very busy ambulance station, and people who work there, they work different shifts and they can't always get public transport because they don't work 9 to 5. It's a 24-hour station. I've spoken to some of the ambulance drivers and they said if they can't park there, they don't know where they would park because opposite there is parking restrictions. So I think we've got to bear in mind that the people who work there, including all the ambulance workers and the staff at the ambulance station, would be, well, I don't know what would happen if we brought this in. I for one, can't support this if we include Wellington Crescent and Lee Close. I don't see there's any need for it because it is purely industrial, and I really think the ambulance workers, for a start, deserve to be able to park. They do a wonderful job, and I don't think they should be penalised. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Forgive me for dwelling back on past minutes, but if I can just cast the committee's mind back to December 2022, and I know that Councillor Sillett was absent from that meeting, but that was the meeting where we first agreed to go out to consult on the California Road area. This neighbourhood has a long-standing policy dating back to 2006, reaffirmed in 2014 and reaffirmed again in 2022, so that there's a 40% turnout threshold that's typically applied to these schemes, because it's a long-established principle at RBK in these past consultations that if residents don't respond, there clearly isn't an appetite for it. Therefore, we don't seek to impose an additional levy. Now, I moved, and it was unanimously agreed in December 2022, that the requirement for the consultation response rate of 40% before further action be taken be waived, on the basis that, as we know, in elections, if nowhere else, turnout in that particular area, which neatly falls into a polling district, has always been low. But just to address Councillor Massimi's point, it is a policy of this neighbourhood that if people don't respond, we don't take action. It was waived on the basis that, well, both times we've not achieved a 40% response rate. But I don't think we can take a lack of response to then simply impose an additional levy. If people felt there were a parking issue that needed to be resolved, they would have responded, as indeed in areas where we have permits, people do respond positively. And I'm not comfortable putting an additional tax or levy on residents who clearly don't have a demand for it.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. Anybody else? Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Chair. I also, share with the view with our colleague, but I have to declare my interest, as I often use the supermarket down the Wellington Crescent, and I also need to deliver some view and complaint from the Korean community as well. They quite, often use the supermarket, but they found it quite difficulty in finding the parking space, and it's quite dangerous and it's quite difficult to going through the exit. Also, how do you say? Just before to getting into the Kingston Road, have to wait quite a while and get because there's no signal or no signage or whatever. So I wonder if he can improve the situation around that junction. And I think that idea of the 1 hour parking, no return in 2 hours or whatever, might be a brilliant idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Thorpe.
This is clearly a difficult issue. It's reasonable to assume that people who don't respond don't much care because they don't have to park on the road, but that's only a reasonable assumption, and we don't know if that's absolutely true. I just wonder, the next stage of this, if we were to go there, would be another round of consultation. And Eunice, that is a different style of consultation, clearly, because we're then saying, right, this is what we plan to do. What do you think? Could you just talk us through the process after that? What would happen? It would come back to the committee and we would make a formal decision. Is there still some room to manoeuvre, or is it just a yes-no decision at that stage?
Thank you, Eunice. Yeah, what we were talking about before. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Chair, thank you. As I said earlier, members, is tonight you are making a decision on the concept. So therefore, as Councillor Massimi said, some residents, they don't think seriously about it sometimes. They don't think it's going to happen. So therefore, their feet's a bit cold. They think you're not going to go for it. So now, if you approve it, it's your call. So usually we write to all these people and to the resident, all of them, and we tell them there is the publication of the traffic management order. And you have 3 weeks, then you can formally object. So this is the opportunity for the people who doesn't support the scheme to object to it. So which I'm most likely, I know, if you approve it, you're going to have objection. But then you can see the point, who is really doesn't want the scheme, he will object. So he will not say about don't want to object. So because if he doesn't object, he knows that means the scheme is going to go ahead. So your opportunity now, it's not done deal now, it's subject to. So if with no objection to the traffic management order, we can implement it, but most likely the gentleman here, he will object if you're going to introduce his, Mr. President. So therefore, I'm expecting some sort of objection. So if members, they can approve the concept as it is, go through the traffic management order, then we can bring all the objection, then you can make your final decision. But that is your call. If you decide tonight to approve, either way, it's fine, but I have to make it very clear to you members, I cannot come back next year with another consultation. So you are telling your resident for 3 years, well, that will be including the next election, they will not be coming here before that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Eunice. That is clear. Councillor Sillett.
Thank you, Eunice. I do listen to Councillor Giles because I know he's been engaged with this issue, and his opinion does carry weight. But I'm just aware that I'm just trying to put myself in the position of somebody that can't park outside their own house, that's driving them nuts, as the figures show. Obviously, it's going to cause displacement. But the figures I'm seeing, and I'm not great at maths, but I'm seeing, 72 people say they want a PPA or CPZ, and 62, so there's a small majority of about, 15% above, that say they do. I could do with a bit of guidance. The turnout, I take Councillor Massimi's point, if people didn't bother responding, and I take your point that, well, they didn't really take it too seriously, but they probably will if you issued the TMO. So I could do with a little bit of guidance as to, we're democratically accountable. If the majority of people are saying they want to see a PPA and the officers are saying we recommend a PPA and we can alleviate the concerns of businesses in Wellington Close, I'm a little bit conflicted, to be honest with you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, if I may, and I raised this at the meeting in December 2022, the other element of our previous consultations have always been a 40% turnout, and of the 40% plus, at least 60% must be in favour. There were consultations in 2015 that sprawled pretty much all of what is now New Malden Village Ward and a tad of Green Lane and St James and parts of Combe Vale. And in different areas, it wasn't a blanket scheme, but they split it up into different pockets, you may recall. And although some areas there was a majority in favour of parking schemes, especially up the hill around the Blagdon area, it didn't hit the 60% mark. It was between 50 and 60%, and so it fell. And so if we're basing it on precedent and what our predecessors have done, there isn't support. And again, if I could just point to the decision that was taken last time, the view last time was that there wasn't sufficient support for a CPZ. The percentage was lower last time of objections. 42% objected last time. 44% are objecting this time. No, I know, I'm just trying to emphasise the point. And just finally, if I may, with respect to Lee Close, obviously in Lee Close, there's elements that are single yellow lines where in the week and indeed on Saturdays you can't park. But I know, perhaps as a less frequent user of the H-Mart, but a user nonetheless, that on a Sunday the car park does overflow and people do use the single yellow line. And actually, if we were to make it CPZ or PPA, dare I say it would make parking for the supermarket even worse than it is now, because they wouldn't be able to overflow in any way onto the street.
Anybody else? Yeah.
The other thing I bear in mind is that people that are voting for it are really suffering. And some people that say, well, I don't want to do anything because I've got to drive, it's not affecting me. And I kind of feel that the people that want something really do want it. And the people that object, I'm supposing that it's not going to affect them. They've got to drive, they don't really care. It's certainly been my experience in other areas.
Councillor Massimi and then Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Chair. I echo my colleague, Councillor Sillett, comment, and And I thank Councillor Giles also for reminding us about previous decision or choice. And I hear that. And I do agree, even with the rest of my colleagues, that maybe the sample size is relatively small and might not be a complete representation. But I just want, again, looking back at the process, this is not just the first time. This is another round where people have been made aware, when there has been campaigning, where there has been a lot of activity from the ward councillor and from everyone else. And I am still a little bit baffled by the fact that, you know, this is not just, oh, we've just informed you. This is, we have looked at it, we have not done it, we come back in a year. I want everyone to realize that this exercise cost a lot of money. And I mean a lot. I'm not talking £1,000. I'm talking proper 5-digit plus figures to really do this thoroughly with the time, the investment, the resources, the analysis. So it's not a grabbing exercise or saving money, and it's not that we are benefiting as much as we would like from the business rate in Kingston, unfortunately. But it is just to represent the voice and the constant challenges for people indeed that have not been able to park for a long time because of the design of the property they bought and the increased traffic and overflow. We're not going to be, whatever we do, we're not going to be able to please everyone, but we're going to have to look at it from a very fair standpoint. And again, my view is people that really care are the one that tends to engage or share their voice, and they still, as explained by Eunice and the officers, they will still be perfectly able to formulate this in a much more effective way once and if this is approved. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Councillor Bolton.
Thanks very much, Chair. And just two quite small points really for Eunice, just for clarity, please. If this concept were to be approved tonight, when would it actually start? When would people on the ground start noticing that it had been brought in? Would that happen immediately, or?
Thank you, Chair. As I said earlier, if the scheme approved tonight, which I don't know which way it's going, so if it's approved tonight, all of it, some of it, whatever you decide, it's your call. So it's got to go through process, and it will not be on the ground before 6 months.
Thank you very much. That's clarity. I think that, Chair, that is the first time the figure of 6 months has been mentioned. So thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, no, but Eunice just mentioned before, he's mentioned several times tonight that this isn't the last stop. There's further chance for people to object to it, should we even approve it tonight.
Thank you, Chair. But my question
is clear?
When on the ground, and Eunice has answered that, not before 6 months.
Sorry if I misunderstood.
Thank you, Eunice, for that. The second question is this, could you clarify, please, just this issue of visitor permits for businesses? You seem to say that there already was a system in place which businesses like Neil's can avail themselves of. What is that, basically?
As Councillor Charles mentioned earlier, the cost of our business permit, it's not cheap. And the reason for that is we want to encourage the businesses and the people to be using active travel, and in order to walk or to cycle and use other modes of transport. And the same apply for the visitor permit. They only entitled, I think, for very limited number. So therefore, they are not the same as resident permit. So I don't have the details in front of me, but I can look at it for you.
No, thanks for that. So they wouldn't actually guarantee the ability of visitors to the business to park there. It's not a guarantee of parking, just like an ordinary,
Sorry, it's not guarantee to find the space available, because don't forget, this is spaces. If it's all the area have one CPZ, so anybody live in the area, he can park there. And it's not only that, if somebody has a blue badge holder, he can park there free of charge as well.
Councillor Giles.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask Eunice, if I may, through you, Chair? Obviously, if we vote tonight to move toward laying a TMO, One presumes there's a cost involved in laying the TMO. Would he be able to give a rough estimate of what that is? And secondly, if I may, Chair, in Eunice's experience, has there ever been a time where once a TMO has been laid for either a CPZ or a PPA, that when it's come back to committee, we've actually chosen to uphold those objections and at that stage then change our minds?
By all means, Eunice.
Very interesting question. You know the answer, but anyway, as you know, councillors, this is your decision. So you can decide wherever you want, or you could be the first one to decide to uphold the objection and for the scheme not to go ahead.
Thank you, Eunice. And the cost, if I may, roughly, of laying a TMO?
We need to pay for the publication, and the publication will be about £600.
Thank you. I mean, look, I'm, Chair, not in favour of more officer time and indeed money going on something if later on down the line we're going to turn around and say, no, thank you, the support isn't there. I want to add just one new element to this, which isn't reflected in the figures. I don't believe that Neil's thoughts are reflected in the consultation figures because he responded too late, and neither did Ms Edwards, who lives in England Way, but she did send this in to the Street Space email, and I'm very grateful to them for passing it on to both me and you, but for the benefit of the committee. Because there are deeply held views from those who don't have off-street parking, but there are deeply held views from those who do too. Ms Edwards says, and asked me to read this out, I'm very sorry this is late, but I've only just received this letter from you on the 20th of January. It was in my neighbour's postbox and she goes away a lot. I'm absolutely devastated if controlled parking goes ahead in England Way. I have 7 children who come to visit me most days. We're a very close family and spend a lot of time together. This would have to stop as I could not afford to pay parking. You'd be taking my life away from me as you would lots of other people round here. I no longer go to visit my daughter who lives in Vineyard Close because of a similar situation. Please read this out when you're considering your discussion. Kind regards. And so just to make the point, there are deeply held views on both sides, even with those with off-street parking.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to just make some comments. I went down, and I hope it's not going to bore everybody, but I'm going to say it anyway. I went down, had a site visit today. I went to Wellington Crescent. The whole area I know very well. It used to be part of my ward before the boundary changes in 2022 with Councillor Durrant. And basically, I observed that most of the businesses have a car park down there or some sort of frontage where cars can be parked, waiting repairs or whatever they're having done to them. The ambulance station has also got some parking down there as well. And the majority of houses in the roads listed have either got off-street parking or designated parking spaces, for those of you who may or may not know the area very well. Okay? So they have got somewhere to park. Now, if a house has got 4 cars, that's obviously going to promote a problem, or this lady who's got 7 children coming to visit her every day. But basically, most of the roads down there have some form of designated parking, and I think that's possibly why a lot of them haven't bothered to respond, as Councillor Sillett sort of alluded to before. Some have even got garages down Windrush Close, and some of them have even got parking for 2 cars, which I'm not here to judge how many cars you're going to have, but as Eunice said, we want to increase active travel, walking, cycling, using the bus, whatever. So that may be a factor that people don't reply because it doesn't affect me, and I can understand that as well. So going forward, do you want to vote straight away on this? Or do you want to include, or do we have to include an amendment for the, please put your hand down, I haven't finished speaking, to include the 1 hour waiting for the business parking? How do we work around that, Eunice? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think first you need to make a decision if you want to include Wellington Crescent as a part of the scheme or not. So if you decide not to include it, then we can consult, you can put in your recommendation for us to consult on 1 hour, no retain within 2 hours in Wellington Crescent. That will be completely separate and different piece of work we need to do. So they are not a part of the CPZ. So first you need to vote if they are in or they are not in. And that is really the question you need to make it. Then we can add the amendment if you want to add it now.
Okay.
So if they weren't in, did he say that we could sort out the 1 hour parking separately to this any decision?
We have to decide that now, or we can decide that after we've had the vote. Is everybody happy with that? Yeah?
Yes, Chair. I mean, I'm speaking a bit too much tonight probably, but I would tend to vote for the scheme with the inclusion separately, as I think Eunice has said, of the no return within, parking for an hour, no return within 2 hours, on the basis that Neil has said, although that's far from being his preferred option, it might work. So that would be my position.
Yeah, Eunice, thanks.
I think in this resolution here, it's got to be an amendment, because currently I'm asking you for all the area to be approved. So what you are saying, you are excluding Wellington Crescent from the PPA or CPZ, whatever you prefer to call it. However, you would like to see consultation to take place in Wellington Crescent for 1 hour, no retain within 2 hours, and if there is objection, the result will be brought to you to deal with it.
So do we agree to that?
No, but if I may, sorry, just clarity.
Well, we're either going to...
No, I'd like clarity, if I may, please, on the amendment, Chair. Wellington Crescent has been mentioned.
Yes.
One presumes that would also then include Apsley Road and Lee Close.
Sorry, Chair. Yes, in the north of Kingston Road, all of it will not be included.
Right, okay. So, Councillor Massimi, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was catching your colleague's eyes, and this is why my hand was raised. I am slightly confused as what are we going to vote for now, and what exactly we're going to decide. So, I need clarifications, and I am still between a rock and a hard place as to what's the move or how I will vote. I have yet to decide.
Yeah, okay. It'll become clear in a minute. Eunice, thank you.
Chair, members, if you look to the plan what you have in here, all the road, this is road, all of those, they don't want to be included as a part of the scheme. You're only including this area as a part of the scheme. But at the same time, they want me to consider for this area 1 hour, no retain within 2 hours.
Thank you. I understand that consideration will be part of another exercise in 2-3 years' time, correct? That is not going to be done before, or that's not going to be able to be pushed. So if we were to decide tonight, and assuming there are not that many objections, we will only vote on south of Kingston Road.
I think you're making it overcomplicated.
But actually...
Well, no, I mean, I like the officer, Eunice, to answer my questions, because I think I'm actually explaining what it's going to happen.
Very important question, which is, if there is an objection on the southern area, and you decide to uphold the objection of the southern area, why you want to introduce any scheme to the northern Kingston Road if there is no CPZ or PPA anymore?
Right, I'm with you.
So they need to follow each other.
No,
So,
I agree that, but
yeah.
we're jumping the gun a bit. We're just a long way ahead down that road, aren't we? To be truthfully told, we haven't even got a decision tonight yet. So, we're making it really complicated, I think. Right.
I hope this will clarify. So I fully take your point. There's no point in doing anything if it was taken out of the scheme before we decide what. But assuming that the southern series of roads were included, how quickly could you protect the business parking in Wellington Crescent area after the introduction of, for example, a PPA in those southern streets?
Actually, we can introduce that quicker than the PPA scheme because it takes less time to introduce it than it is the preparation for selling a permit and do all of that. So it takes a lot longer. So the north side of Kingston Road can definitely be even implemented before the implementation of the PPA.
Right, okay, we clear? Yeah? Okay, so I'm going to propose amendment, all right? And the amendment is to exclude from the PPA or CPZ Wellington Crescent, Lee Close and Apsley Road. May I have a seconder for that? Councillor Giles. Right, those in favour of excluding it? Unanimous?
Yeah, unanimous.
Thank you. You're right. Okay. And for the main motion...
Sorry, I have an amendment to propose, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to propose an amendment that we remove Georgia Road and the roads off it and Springfield Place from the PPA, which would leave only California and the roads immediately off it. The map is slightly misleading insofar as Willow Road doesn't actually lead into Georgia.
Sorry, Georgia Road and Springfield.
Georgia Road and Springfield Place. Thank you, Alice.
But we've already taken the other out. Eunice has said you've already made a decision on it. Yeah.
You already voted all the area north of Kingston Road to be PPA.
In the red.
All of you voted, and all of you enormously voted.
Yes.
So now you voted on that.
Yes.
So are you going to vote in? I'm not sure. I'm got lost because you already
I'm
approved.
in favour.
There is a
I'm in
resolution.
favour. As I appreciate through you, Chair. I appreciate that I was speaking to your colleague Alan prior, Eunice, but at the pre-meeting that we had as ward members, I made quite clear to Alan my own view, which was that on 2 occasions now, the residents of Georgia Road and Springfield Place and the roads off it had been given the opportunity to object or speak in favour of parking permits. But there is an issue in California Road, clearly, for a small number of homes. And I expressed my desire for officers to consider a scheme that was California Road and the roads off it in isolation, on the basis that there will also be a scheme which will be considered by the Kingston and North Kingston neighbourhood for Dickeridge and the roads immediately off it. And I understand from Councillor Waring that he fully supports that scheme. And so that area, although slightly off of your map, actually California and Dickeridge actually form quite a nice area together for a scheme and address 2 issues there that have been caused. Almost every home in Georgia Road does have a parking place. Every road in Oregon has 1 parking place.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, every home. Every home in Nevada has 1 parking place. And every home in Springfield Place, bar Lockwood Court, has 1 off-street parking place. All we are doing is for those with 2 cars or those who seek visitors is raising money from them. There will not be a displacement issue for those with 1 car because they all have off-street parking. Therefore, I support the amendment to remove Wellington Crescent and the roads off it, which is why I voted for it, but why I'm proposing a further amendment to remove Georgia Road, Oregon Close, Nevada Close, and Springfield Place on the basis that every residence down there has off-street parking. Therefore, all we are doing is imposing a levy on people that clearly do not want it for visitors and those with second cars.
Can I just say, in Georgia Road, Councillor Giles, there's a couple of blocks of flats which don't have a lot of parking. There may be a little bit of tightness there of parking, so I draw your attention to that.
Thank you. I'd welcome a seconder.
I'll second that. Thank you.
Something. At the moment, why are you removing only Wellington Crescent? Why don't you just say you remove all these roads? The only one you are approving to be PPA is California Road and Willow Road and Virginia Close. So you are removing everything else. So only one resolution to exclude all of them. But the point is, my advice to members always is, really, you're going to have displacement. And the resident you're referring to who have 1 or 2 cars, they're not going to be able to find a place to put the second car because the commuters who park in California and Willow and all of them, they're going to go to this road to park because it's free. And therefore, my advice to you members is do not do that. But anyway, it's not my call. I'm just advising you that. However, at the end is, it's your call, and the TMO will bring it in more details to you. But that's all what I can say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
I think we should leave it as it is and just vote on that.
I'm happy to.
Because there will...
Do the amendment.
Oh, yeah, as in I'm happy just to put the amendment straight to a vote without a discussion.
Yeah.
Which is...
An amendment to also exclude Georgia Road and Springfield Place.
In my understanding of this, Eunice, I didn't think we could pick out, because we might as well have just said, let's have a PPA in California Road. You can, but as you say, what is the effect of it going to be?
Well, if I may, Chair, it's California Road, Willow Road, Virginia Close, Windrush, Barker Close and England Way. It is actually the majority of the space south of the Kingston Road that doesn't currently have a parking permit scheme. You couldn't simply do California. People would cross the road and park in Willow. But there are clear demarcations. Willow Road doesn't go into Georgia as shown on the map. As I say, I don't think we'll agree, which is why there are 2 separate amendments. I support removing Wellington, but I also support removing these. Members clearly support the former, but I don't think they'll support the latter, but I wish it to go on the record, so I wish to put it to a vote.
Say the amendment and have it seconded, and then we'll have a vote on it.
Thank you. I believe it's already been seconded by Councillor Tracy, but, I'm happy to...
I think I would like you to look to the map, which you can see Barker Close and England Way are not public highway.
Yeah.
They are a private road. So therefore, unless a resident are happy to be part of the CPZ or the PPA, we can't enforce the scheme on them. They're not a highway, they are a private road. So I think I want you to be aware of that.
Yeah.
So there is a possibility we may not able to introduce it on these 2 roads unless we have the support from the resident of these 2 close. I thought I need to make it clear here.
Thank you. So I think Chair Eunice makes a very valid point. If we're talking about displacement, people will simply park in England Way and Barker Close, if that is indeed the theory that other members hold. The Housing Association there don't have any parking controls in England Way and Barker Close. I think it's a very valid point. My amendment still stands. I wish to have it put to the vote, which is that we exclude Georgia Road, Oregon Close, Nevada Close, and Springfield Place from the PPA.
I'm sorry, 2?
Again?
3? No.
And those against, you said, sorry.
Sorry. Those 4. 2. Those against.
Everyone else, yep, so that amendment falls.
So that amendment falls. Right, moving on to the main vote. As set out in page B1 of the report, I had a seconder from Councillor Thorpe. Those in favour of implementing the PPA, please raise your hands.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Those against? 2.
Chair, for my clarification, may I ask, are we excluding Wellington from this
But we did that
resolution?
separately, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah, we
we're
did that
already
separately.
fine.
Yeah.
Just to make sure. Okay.
Just to make sure. So when will that come back? At any time we wish?
No, it's on you. We
the
will be
distant
going
future.
for that traffic management, definitely not in March.
Not in March.
So you have
Okay.
to look at the committee after March.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Eunice, for that clarification. So that's that, I think. Thank you very much, everybody. And moving on to so that is carried. So item 7, outside body appointment to the Henry Smith Charity. This is to appoint a neighbourhood committee. Thanks, Eunice, for your time this evening. To appoint a neighbourhood committee representative trustee to serve on the Henry Smith Charity for a 5-year term of office. This is an item, to the Henry Smith Charity. And I thank Councillor Park, I believe, who has put her name forward for this role. So I propose a recommendation set out on page C1 of the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Thorpe, thank you very much indeed. Any comments from the public on this?
No, none from the
You're not the public?
No.
So, okay, and any members' questions for Alice? Thank you, Councillor Giles.
Thank you. Sorry, a tad too enthusiastic there, Chair. Just to congratulate, in a pending committee decision, Councillor Park's appointment. This is a role that was last filled by the late Alderman David Fraser, and I know it was a position that he held very dearly, and so I was pleased that when he was not returned as a member in 2018, that the committee continued to confer this position upon him. It's, from what I understand from David, a very good local organisation and one that he took care of it for very, very many years. So all the best, and I'm sure you'll do very well.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. Any other comments or what? Just to congratulate you, Councillor Park, and good luck in your new role.
Sorry, do you need a formal vote?
Oh, hang on a minute, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Okay, so we have to vote on this. So those in favour? Agreed. Unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Okay, and last but not least, Ralph is going to present the Neighbourhood Manager's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to provide a concise end-of-year update for the Ranger, and I'm going to start off by saying I hope Jackie recovers quickly. Unfortunately, she injured her shoulder removing a fly tip at the beginning of January, and she's certificated sick till the end of January at least. So I hope she recovers there. But let's say her achievements have been great this year. 72 fly poster removals, 161 graffiti removals, 137 litter picking opportunities, 86 fly tip removals, and on 23 occasions she cut back vegetation as well. So an outstanding year's work for Jackie, and as I said, I hope she recovers soon. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I'm sure I can express our concerns and hope she makes a speedy recovery to Jackie Dory. Thank you very much. Item 9, there are no urgent items this evening, so I close this meeting at 9:11.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, everybody who may or may not have been listening on the YouTube. Thank you. Bye-bye.